Welcome back to the Situation Room in PTV World, where we are discussing the Pahalgam false flag operation and all that has ensued, India's false claims, India's false narrative, and India's war mongering, and of course the Pakistani reaction that has been extremely strong, effective and productive. We will continue in this very vein to discuss different aspects of that. But before we go to that, we want to take you to an address by our Qaid Muhammad Ali Jinnah that has many things in reference to what is happening. Let's have a look at it.
If we take our inspiration and guidance from the Holy Quran, the final victory, I once again say, will be ours. Do not for a moment imagine that your enemies can ever succeed in their design. Do not be overwhelmed by the enormity of the task. You are made of sterling material and are second to none. You are a nation whose history is replete with people of wonderful great character and heroism. Live up to your tradition and add to another chapter of glory. All I require of you now is that every one of us whom this message reaches must vow to himself and be prepared to sacrifice his all if necessary. Building up Pakistan as a bulwark of Islam and as one of the biggest nations whose ideal is peace within and peace without. Keep up your morale. Do not be afraid of death. Our religion teaches us to be always prepared for death. We face it bravely. Save the honor of Pakistan and Islam. There is no better salvation for a Muslim than the death of a martyr for a righteous cause. If we are right, we cannot fail. And we shall live and not die. Do your duty on that faith in God. There is no power on earth that can undo Pakistan.
There is no power on earth that can undo Pakistan. Those were the words that our Qaid said decades ago, and those words still hold true. Pakistan is a strong Muslim nation that will continue to defend itself against all nefarious designs, especially coming from the Indian side, whether it be directly or indirectly. We've seen various evidences of that through the Jafar Express incident, all through the Khawarij that have been entering in the Pakistani territories and creating havoc in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and the BLA that have been creating havoc in Balochistan and that have been effectively thwarted by the Pakistani armed forces. Pakistan understands what India's hegemonic designs have been and how they have since 1947 neither been able to accept Pakistan as a state, nor have they been able wanting to see a Pakistan that becomes stronger and more effective in the region. To discuss more on this post Pahalgam situation, we continue to be joined by different guests. Zahir Shah Sherazi Sahab joins us online. He's one of his experts. Zahir Sahab, thank you very much to have joined us and to have waited so patiently to talk to us. Zahir Sahab, I begin with referencing this incident of the 54 Khawarij, then the 17 more Khawarij that are here, and of course the credible evidence that we continue to receive of their backing by India. How credible, not credible I should say, how effective is the Pakistani posturing post the Pahalgam false flag operation to lay bare the fact that it is India, in fact, that is the real terrorist?
Well, thank you, Omar. And as I was listening to your discussion with Dr. Abdulah, obviously, I think this is a very strong response, and it should have been more stronger. But it's a very candid and very pertinent response to the Indian water war, which it wanted to launch against Pakistan by revoking unilaterally the Indus Treaty, which even is not acceptable as far as the rules, regulations, and the treaties clauses are concerned. But coming to your point that is this a coincidence that more than not 54 but at least more than 70, because there is an update that some of more militants who were hiding near that area, they were also eliminated today. So it's not a coincidence, because when Indians have seen, they even on the western border, what happened in Pulgam, and the response the Indians have. After that, perhaps the Fitna al-Khawarij are the militant elements which are openly supported by India. There is no, a negation of that, because the Indian minister, the Indian Prime Minister, they had repeatedly boosted up that they would be trying to break Pakistan into four pieces. So obviously, this is a true narrative that India is supporting BLA, TTP, and other militant groups, not only symbolically, but they are also providing them weapons, they are providing them the necessary logistics, as well as most of the money which is being provided by these elements. So this is a great victory again. The Indians who wanted to carry out an attack from the western border, it was neutralized. Now coming again to the what the Indians false flag, perhaps now it's an open secret that it was a false flag operation. If we see, there are two, according to my perspective, perhaps there are two reasons. One is the international reason, and another is the reason at home, and that is the Bihar elections. As we have seen, Prime Minister, the Indian Prime Minister Modi, he was on a trip to Saudi Arabia, and he cut short that trip after this incident happened. And straight away came there, and then after that he went for a rally in Bihar to, forward his party's stance during the elections. So it's very strange that it is being questioned by most of the Indian intellectuals. I would not say the Indian-controlled media, which is more or less warmonger. They wanted to, punish Pakistan and this and that. But I think speaking loudly on the television sets and prompting the Indian army or the Indian Prime Minister would not do anything good. But again, and as far as the revoking in this water treaty, it looks perhaps that the Indians are worried about what can be done by China with them. If being a low riparian country, India seek a stoppage of water in Brahmaputra river by the Chinese, what would happen then to the Indian water system? So obviously, perhaps as the Chinese support is with Pakistan, they helped it out in the UN Security Council. Also, the Chinese have extended their all-out support to be with Pakistan in this difficult time when Indians are leveling allegations of terrorism against Pakistan as per previous practice. So I think, being a low riparian country, Pakistan is entitled for that water under the Indus Water Treaty. So obviously, perhaps the boosting of by the Indian Prime Minister, then by the Indian bureaucracy, as well as the TV channels, perhaps it's not so simple. If the countries start doing revoking such like water treaties, it would be India to suffer more, because the entire water system which is coming from China, obviously if they do it to Pakistan, Chinese can do it to Indians. So perhaps they have realized that making a pretext to strike Pakistan or pressurize Pakistan in one way or the other. But again, I think the Pakistan narrative is always very much effective in the Indian elections, and Prime Minister Modi was rapidly, losing his popularity graph, and this was the only reason. It's not the first time, as earlier we were mentioning that during Bill Clinton's visit, then we see the Pulwama incident, after that the Pulgam incident, and before that even the Pathankot incident, all were linked in one way or the other with the inside Indian happening, especially during elections and all such incidents. So I think perhaps the Pakistan's response was very much effective, both diplomatically on the international level as well as on the military front, because we are ready, as the army chief has very clearly announced that if there is any misadventure, the Pakistani armed forces are likely to repulse. And the stance from the government at the diplomatic level, it is very mature, it is very candid, and perhaps we had not got panicked, because this is the first time, not the first time the Indians are leveling these allegations. And what Pakistan did this time very effectively, it has announced that Pakistan is willing for any international and impartial probe into the incident. Now, if Indians are ready, Pakistan is ready, it means there is no truth in that allegation, and India would never accept Pakistan's offer of an international and impartial inquiry into the Pahalgam incident.
All right, Zahir Sahib, stay online with us. We've also been joined, ladies and gentlemen, by two interesting guests in the studios. Let me introduce them to you one by one. On my very right is Anum Khan. She's a nuclear and security analyst from CISS. Thank you very much, Anum, to have joined us. And also Maheen Shafiq, our very regular guest and research associate from ISSI. And the both of you are together, and the both of you are friends as well, so that's a good coincidence. We'll begin with you, Anum. We've seen so many YouTube channels that have been closed off Pakistani media in India. There is an outcry from within India and from within Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir of the truth being pushed aside and a false narrative being propagated. Don't you feel that the Indian citizens, despite the fact that we close the YouTube channels that are stating facts, understand what is true and what isn't?
I thank you for having me today. The major thing about India today is that the youth of India today is different from the people, this generation is very different from the previous generations. They are more informed, they see quite through the propaganda that Indian state media and other Indian backed agencies opted for internationally or nationally. And let me tell you one more thing, even if India tries to ban some YouTube channels or maybe some other private entities and channels that are working within India or outside India, and interestingly the way they banned Pakistani voices as well, that would do them no good, rather it would do more harm to them, because now people are more informed and people know, people saw through what India did in the previous crises, may it be Balaghat, may it be Pulwama. Even if we go back to Mumbai crisis, Pakistan had always opted for a joint probe, and Indian media had always sensationalized the issue, and interestingly Pakistani media has always tried to be a mediator between the two rivals. However, Indian media had done the opposite.
Just look at how the Pakistani media is reporting on this and how the Indian media is reporting on this.
Very responsibly, the way Pakistani media is doing so is very responsible. I should commend you guys for this.
Maheen, we've seen the Indian posturing. We have seen the Indian posturing since the last few weeks and years and months, and we've talked about that with you. But in concerns the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir region, when you look at all the false flag operations, Pahalgam is not the first, and I don't think it is going to be the last false flag operation as well. But what really brings to the fore India's hegemonic designs is the Indus Water Treaty and the holding in abeyance of this Indus Water Treaty, and then the Jhelum River incident that happens as well. How does Pakistan's stronger water reservoir capacity counter such tactics as opening the water in Jhelum? And that they thought that Pakistani cities will be flooded, the villages will be flooded. Nothing of that sort happened. Has India's, in your point of view, weaker reservoir capacity backfired on its own water security ambitions?
First of all, thank you so much for having me on the show again. It's always a pleasure to talk about my favorite subject. We have seen India suspend the Indus Water Treaty, but this, I think, is a major issue for India itself, because India says is using this as a political and a strategic tool, but the problem we need to see within India is that India has its own issues with the river system within India. There are 8 disputes between major different Indian states such as Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Rajasthan, Punjab, Haryana. All of these states have their interstate rivalry regarding the rivers. So we need to see this picture holistically. What are the issues India is facing? So the rivers of Sutlej and Bias are just part of that equation. Just solving this little bit of equation does not solve India's problem. So at the end of the day, regardless of the status of the Indus Water Treaty, India will continue to face the issues that it faces. India has highlighted that it faces the ecological issues, the climate change, the water issues within the states. So India is not solving its own problems by suspending this treaty. So what comes next? This is a political objective that India is trying to gain. Legally, we have heard and read several of the legal experts that India cannot suspend this treaty unilaterally. Even according to the treaty as well as the Vienna Convention, India cannot suspend this treaty on its own. The Vienna Convention highlights that if the treaty needs to be suspended, it needs to abide by the laws and regulations of the articles of the treaty, and the treaty needs to seek arbitration. But interestingly, the Indus Water Treaty does not have a suspension clause in it. It does not have any suspension article in it. So the treaty cannot be legally suspended. This becomes one of the very interesting concern that all of the experts have highlighted. Moving on to Pakistan's capability, we have seen the Tarbela and Mangla capacity. It can hold numerous cubic meters of water. And we have several rivers and canal systems that can hold all of this water. So India, assuming that the unannounced flow of water can disrupt or dysfunction or flood the regions in Pakistan, it's a misconception. We are very well prepared. There are several agencies within Pakistan who are working on floods. We have been through this several times, the natural disasters. So now Pakistan is very well adapting to the climate situation and the climate conditions. So all in all, this is more problem for India, and it's not solving any of its problem regarding the Indus Water Treaty. Is only just a political tool to defame Pakistan.
All right. This, of course, makes Pakistan's case even stronger when it comes to the holding in abeyance of the Indus Water Treaty. And of course, this is just one of the various incidents when you look at the history of how India has been maligning Pakistan directly and indirectly, and doing different measures that it lays bare the Indian tactics or the Indian machinations with regards to Pakistan, and it's just a sorry state of affairs, to say the least, as to what India really stands for. Not pluralism, not diplomacy, but terrorism, what India stands for. Before we go to Zahir Shah Sherazi, we have to show you a little video of this Indian girl who is also exposing India for what it is.
दिन हो गए हैं, अभी तक एक भी इस्तीफा क्यों नहीं आया, या कोई भी किसी ने भी अकाउंटेबिलिटी क्यों नहीं लिया है? वो बात कर रहे हैं हम पानी रोक देंगे, हम पाकिस्तान का ये कर देंगे, हम वो कर देंगे। अरे पानी रोकने से क्या होगा, आप मुझे बताइए। आप क्या सरकार और क्या डिफेंस और क्या आप होम मिनिस्ट्री चला रहे हैं? आपसे अभी तक वो आतंकवादी पकड़े तक नहीं गए हैं। बेवकूफ नहीं है हम लोगों को सब समझ आता है। और जो लोग बेवकूफ बन के घर में बैठे हैं और हिंदू मुस्लिम कर रहे हैं ना, तो बात बात पे ये बात कह रहे हैं कि मुसलमान ही आतंकवादी होता है। तो मैं उनसे ये सवाल करती हूँ, 1984 के दंगों में जो सिख समुदाय मरा था, उसको क्या मुसलमान ने मारा था? जिन्होंने जय श्री राम के नारे लगाकर मुसलमानों को उकसाया कि आप जय श्री राम बोलो, और जब उन्होंने नहीं बोला तो उनका कत्ल कर दिया गया। क्या आप उसको इस श्रेणी में नहीं लेकर आएंगे? क्या आप उसको आतंकवाद नहीं कहेंगे? क्या आप उसको नहीं कहेंगे कि धर्म देखकर मारा गया है? तो जुनैद को कैसे मारा गया था? मैं पूछना चाहती हूँ तबरेज अंसारी जैसे लोगों को, उन सबको भी तो ऐसे ही मारा गया है ना। जब आप मस्जिद में जाके अपना भगवा लहराते हैं, जो राजस्थान में हुआ था, उसने क्या कह के किस तरह से गोली चलाई थी, तब कोई हिंदू क्यों नहीं मरा था? बात बात पे ये कहना कि इस्लाम ही ऐसा है, तो आई एम सॉरी, इस्लाम उनको इजाजत नहीं देता था इस तरह के कत्लेआम करने का। तो मेरे नजर में वो किसी धर्म के थे ही नहीं। रादर देन जिसने ये सब किया उसको पकड़ने की बजाय आप अपने देश में अपने ही लोगों को लड़वा रहे हो। क्यों सरकार आती नहीं है प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस करने और बोलती क्यों नहीं है लोगों को कि इसमें कश्मीरियों का क्या कसूर है, उन स्टूडेंट्स का क्या कसूर है इसमें? क्या वो इंसान नहीं है? आपने कभी कश्मीरियों को अपना समझा ही नहीं है। आपने सिर्फ और सिर्फ कश्मीर को अपना माना है। हमारे हिंदू भाइयों को उन मुसलमान भाइयों ने ही बचाया है, राम राज्य बना दिया है मोदी जी ने। तो आपको 50-50 कमांडोज की क्या जरूरत है? मैं डिसअपॉइंटेड हूँ इस देश की जनता से, क्योंकि 80% जनता सिर्फ और सिर्फ हिंदू मुसलमान करती है। वो सरकार से एक बार ये तक नहीं पूछती कि नौकरियां कहाँ हैं और विमेन सेफ्टी कहाँ है, लोगों की सेफ्टी कहाँ है। आज 3
I think so many things that have been exposed by this woman, and I think many others in India feel the same as well. Zahir Shah Sherazi, when you look at the Indian sentiments, and they are completely contrary to what the Indian media or the Indian government has been propagating, whether it be before or after the false flag operation in Pahalgam. Don't you feel there is going to be an uprising of more of such voices in the coming days of the falsehood or the or the negative way of propagating false flag operations and false narratives and fake news in India is concerned?
Well, Omar, as Maheen and Anum was earlier mentioning, perhaps now, if you see, this is a very different time now. The Indian youth are very vibrant, they are very educated, they know a lot about all these things. And apart from the RSS ideology and the Hindutva concept of Modi government, perhaps the liberal Indian, the educated Indian, they know, they are feeling that there are more Muslims in India than in Pakistan and the rest of the world. So obviously it's a huge country, and the way the Modi government is targeting the minorities, it's not only the Muslims, the Sikhs are targeted, the Christians are targeted. There are more than like 20 to 25 separate freedom movements going on inside India. So a lot of is there, and maybe I think this incident could be a turning point because the Modi government had failed to justify how this incident took place, who were responsible, and even you have more than 7 lakh military in Indian occupied Kashmir. It's almost 7 soldiers for 1 Kashmiri. So how it is possible that a person who had traveled more than 200 kilometers have gone to such a far off area? And the bottleneck from where you have to hike in this region, perhaps it was heavily guarded. And some of the Indian media and international media was reporting that on just a day or two before that incident, the security was removed. So this is also a question. Again, I would just mention that.
Zahir, kindly stay online. We'll have to go to a short break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. And we are discussing the latest situation vis-a-vis the subcontinent. Zahir, you were saying.
Well, actually, I think why this political stunt was launched, I earlier mentioned, but if we go into a wider perspective, you see Indians have lost their western border front because Pakistan has started reconciling with the Kabul administration. So the proxy war, even the water war was launched on the western border even because constantly the Indian administration was supporting even before that the Ashraf Ghani government and then Karzai government and now the Taliban government, they were prompting them, they were forcing them to build dams on Kabul River and Kunal River. So that was also a war on our western border, and it was a water war. Again, they have lost this front. When it comes to Bangladesh, perhaps they have lost their ground there. Also in Nepal, Maldives, as well as in Sri Lanka. So the Indians were totally left alone because of their hegemonic designs and because of the Modi's atrocities against these smaller countries, their torture and their plan to take them over. Because economically as well as with different perspective. So obviously they needed a stunt. And if we come across this important issue, the Bihar election, which is going on to be elected in the next 6 months, Modi was constantly losing his popularity, and this was the only reason this false flag operation was launched. But obviously when it comes to the treaty, as earlier our guest was mentioning, perhaps if we look realistically, doing away with the treaty is one thing, but I think the announcement by the Indian government is just they are suspending it. Suspending means the observer which were likely to go to India or the Indian observer who were coming to Pakistan to check the data and principally see how the water is flowing and how it is going on. Otherwise, I think it's not physically possible to stop water. But again, I think Pakistan have to learn a lesson from this also. This is just a threat. Even if India can stop the water, it can release the water. But what we have done in the last 60 years, after this Indus Water Treaty, Ravi, Satluj and Beas, India has built up, major dams, more than 60 projects. They have more than 300 kilometers of Indira Gandhi Canal diverting the water towards Rajasthan. So obviously we have to plan that if such thing comes after 10 or 20 years, what we have planned. We don't have major projects. We don't have, apart from Mangala and Turbela, we don't have any big dam projects on these rivers. So,
all right, we have to go again to a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back, and these last few minutes of the transmission, we're going to have a fast question answer session with our two guests. I'll start with you, Anum. India's posturing on the diplomatic front has encountered failure. In different countries to which it has asked to take a stand as far as this post Pahalgam false flag operation is concerned is not being handled the way India wanted, and then China is openly supporting Pakistan. How do you see this diplomatic imbalance as far as the Indian side is concerned and the strength as far as Pakistan is concerned?
I think it is a diplomatic set for Pakistan as well, because Pakistan earlier had also given the UN the dossier of the terrorist campaigns of India against Pakistan, which have also amplified in the present times as well. So when we talk about China, now we should understand that China is also a major stakeholder in Kashmir because of two reasons. One, India tried to meddle with China on their porous borders, as well as India also tried to create havoc within Pakistan through terrorist attacks on Chinese. So for China now, CPEC is very important, and CPEC is going towards a second phase, and it's not in the interest of China if there is any instability in the region. So I think for China and Pakistan both, it is very important to highlight at the equal footing diplomatically on international fora on what Pakistan has been, or what India has been doing and what Pakistan has been doing in response. One thing I'll add here is that Pakistan has always shown a restrained response. However, if nudged to the ground like that again and again, Pakistan would opt for, which has been clearly mentioned by our state officials, a quid pro quo plus strategy. So that will be, whatever India does to us, we'll do 1 times more than what India did. So I think India should have sleepless nights.
Let's talk about a New York Times report, Maheen, that came out regarding India's military capabilities. We all know that India has now struck a deal with France to buy 26 Rafale jets as well, in which there are two-seaters, and most of them are single-seaters. But the New York Times report assesses different challenges to India's narrative of military superiority. How do you see this New York Times report as far as India's military capability, despite it trying to acquire as much weapons or as much of aircrafts as possible? Is India's military just a paper tiger despite the billions that have been spent on arms and ammunition?
It's a very interesting aspect what India is trying to portray and what India's actual capabilities are. We have seen in 2019 all of India's defense equipment and its military interoperability and its military capability failed in front of Pakistan's well-trained fighter craft officers. So this shows that India, despite its advanced military, advanced jet, is unable to handle Pakistan. This is primarily, I feel like, because of the lack in its doctrine, lack of its strategy, and most importantly, lack of its consistent strategy with adopting and inducting new innovations and new technology, new military technology as per its doctrine.
All right. We asked question to Zahir Shah Sherazi. Zahir, I'd like a very quick response to that. India's water propaganda around the Indus Water Treaty has failed to gain credibility. Was India's water manipulation attempt nothing more than a failed political stunt? What's your take?
Well, I think it's just a political stunt. I have earlier mentioned it's in-house. Modi wanted to win the upcoming election, so there was no other reason to do this false flag operation. Earlier, as you mentioned about the military might, I think there are two reasons. Pakistani armed forces has a will, and perhaps the Indians lack that will. They have the weapons. They are claiming they are gathering weapons from there, from France, from Germany, from even the Russia. But as far as the capability of Indian armed forces is concerned, I think it's very much visible. It was visible in Kargil. It was visible in 1965. So obviously, I think they claim to be a military might. But as the New York Times report, they had very clearly mentioned that perhaps Indian soldiers are not willing to fight. So this is the thing. Perhaps they have the weapons, they have the armory, but they don't have the courage. And as earlier, what we were listening to Senator Kakar, he has very rightly mentioned India wanted to avenge Ghaznavi, Mahmud Ghaznavi, and earlier the other Muslim conquerors who had ruled India. So it's not possible in 2025 that you should be going for such misadventures. Perhaps Pakistan is very much ready to reply. And as Maheen was mentioning, I think our reply would be one time, like it would be
all right. Thank you very much, Zahir Shah. Thank you very much, Maheen, and thank you so very much, Anum Khan, to have joined us in this part of the transmission. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll just end with the Qaid's pledge, in which he said, "Be ready to sacrifice everything for Pakistan." We are ready to sacrifice everything for Pakistan, and India, beware. Allah Hafiz.